One of the questions that I think is really important to address pretty close to right up front is, do you need to be a successful business person to be an effective business coach? And the short answer, spoiler alert, is no, you don't. But the reason why you don't is worth noting. And the reason is to do with the difference between coaching and consulting. So as a consultant, you bring your expertise to bear on your client's problems or issues. So if you were a business consultant, your business expertise, your business models, your strategic expertise would be what somebody is paying for. But consulting is not coaching. Coaching is about bringing out the best in a person and making the best better. Coaching is about helping your client get more out of themselves than they can get out of themselves. It's about helping them get more out of their life than they're normally getting. And specifically, executive coaching, business coaching, leadership coaching is helping people do what it is that they do better. And in order to do that, you need to be an expert on why people do what they do, not an expert on what they do. And you can see it in athletic coaching. The best golf coaches are not the best golfers. The best football coaches were never the best football players. And you can see right about across the board. Now, here's what you do need. You do need to actually be interested in business. You do need to actually care about the kinds of things that your typical business person is going to care about. If you have no interest in business, then you probably shouldn't be a business coach. But if you're interested and you're willing to go on a learning curve, then your expertise in human beings, in human performance, in human creativity is all that you need. Now, by way of analogy, my son grew up in England for the first 5 years of his life, and I grew up in America. And so when we moved to America, I really wanted him to get into baseball. And he'd never even seen baseball before. And so I, being the kind of caring, patient dad that I was, I immediately signed him up for a team and made him go. And as he hated it. He absolutely hated it. And he came to us after about a week and a half, and he said, "I don't want to play anymore. I want to quit." And my wife was there, and she was looking to me, I think, to do the "go get 'em Tiger" speech and the "you can do it" speech. But that's not where I went, because I understand a little bit about human performance. And so what I actually did was I said to him, "Well, why do you want to quit?" And he said, "Because I suck at baseball." And I said, "Yeah, you do," because he did. I said, "But the question is, do you want to get good at it?" Well, his eyes lit up. See, it had never occurred to him that it was something you could get good at. He thought it was something you were either born good at or born not good at. And a lot of people come to the world of business from that point of view. They think either, well, I'm just not a business person. I just don't have a business head. I'm just not a coach. I'm not. Well, like anything else, if you want to get good at it, you need to put yourself on a learning curve. And fortunately, human beings are made to learn. When we throw ourselves into a situation, when we get in over our heads, we find out that we can float. And when we find out that we can float, we learn how to swim. So with my son, what I did is I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. Every day we're going to throw the ball 50 times back and forth. And you're going to take 50 swings off the tee. And we're just going to play catch. And we're going to do that. And we're going to do that every day for a month. And I promise you, if at the end of the month you still want to quit, you can quit. Well, of course, what happened? Well, by practicing the fundamentals, by playing catch, by swinging a bat, he got good. In fact, he got to be one of the best kids on his team. And by the time the month rolled around, there was no way he was going to quit. Well, it's the same with developing your artistry as a coach. To be honest, if you haven't done this before, you're probably not going to be very good when you start. But that's okay, because if you throw yourself in, you'll find yourself on a learning curve. And that's all you ever need to do. is if you aim yourself in a direction and throw yourself in, you will be amazed at what happens. And that's going to turn out to be at the heart of the coaching model I'm going to share with you towards the end of this module. So one of the things that's going to be really helpful to you as you begin working with more executive clients, with more leadership clients, with more business clients, is getting really clear on what your job is and what their job is. And both of you have a job to do if the goal is impact. If the goal is that as a result of the work you do together, as a result of the coaching, they're able to perform at a higher level, they're able to be more productive, they're experiencing less stress and pressure in their work and handling the pressure and stress that they do feel better, they're making better decisions, they're effectively doing the job of doing their job more effectively. Now, your client's first and most important job is just to intend to be impacted, to make themselves as receptive as they can to seeing something new and to having what they see positively impact them. Now, sometimes a client will show up and maybe they've been sent to you, or maybe they feel that for whatever reason that they feel threatened by you. I remember once going into a place and for some reason they'd introduced me as a body language expert. And so literally every client walked in like this and kind of, didn't want to let me see anything. And of course, nothing good comes from that. Without the desire to be impacted, without the desire, the willingness to be impacted, you're fighting a losing battle. So that's their first job. And it's usually, in my experience, worth letting them know that that's their job. Because if they're not bought in, if they're not intending to be impacted, then you can do all sorts of wonderful things on your side of the conversation, and nothing much is going to actually shift. Now, their second job is to stay in the conversation. Because very often what happens is somebody will be with you and then they got to get back to their email. They'll be with you and they'll go, oh yeah, that's great, that's really helpful, I'll come back if I have any more problems. But the nature of the inside-out conversation that we're going to be having, the nature of a conversation built on principles, is that no matter how much you see, there's always more to see. And the more you see, the more impact that it has. So your client's willingness to stay in the conversation past the bit where they think they get it, past the bit where they think they don't get it and they're never going to get it, past the point where they're just really busy right now and they'll get back to you, is going to make a huge difference in how much impact the conversation has. And then the third one is to really encourage them to stay in the game. And the game is just whatever game they're playing. Because coaching is a real-time activity. In other words, it's something where the impact shows in the work. And so it's not a philosophical exercise, even though we'll be talking quite philosophically at times. Ultimately, it plays out in the way their work plays out, in the way they do their work. So that's really their job. And it's not a hard job, but it is an important job. They need to intend to be impacted, they need to stay in the conversation, and they need to stay in the game. Now, your job as a coach is, in a way, similarly simple, which is your job is to facilitate insight in your client. In other words, everything that you do is designed to help them see what they have not seen. And that works in two different ways. So one of the things that you're doing is you're helping make the invisible visible. You're helping them see behind the scenes of their behavior, behind the scenes of their psychology, so that they can begin to not just become more aware of their patterns, but to become aware of what's behind them and of the incredible amount of freedom that they have behind what they currently do. The second thing that you're trying to do is work with them to help them see possible futures. So in a way, you're inventing possible futures with your client. And one of the analogies that I sometimes use is you have two tools as a coach. You have a flashlight and a mirror. And sometimes what you're doing is you're holding the mirror up so they can not just see what they're doing, but they can see what's behind it. And sometimes you're using a flashlight to kind of look around in the dark with them, both to see what's maybe hidden in what they're doing, but also to see what's ahead, to see what they might not yet see about what's possible. Now, how do you do it, right? Even though I said that this is more about how does it work than how do you do it, the question everybody has at some level is, well, that sounds great. How do I do it? How do I facilitate insight? How do I get them to see what they aren't yet seeing? Well, I'm going to share with you what I call the simplest coaching model in the world. And it is the only coaching model I have ever used. And it is the only coaching model that I really see anyone use, no matter how they describe their coaching model. And it's 2 parts. You ready? Part 1, show up. Now, what I mean by show up is get really present with the other person. Really be with them. Don't just be in your head. Don't just be with your idea of what it is and your hopes about what you're going to do with them. Don't be in your desire to prove what a great coach you are. Show up to the client. And then part 2 is respond to what shows up. In other words, there's no way to prepare a coaching session if you're really going to be present with your client. So what you're dependent on is what I call your grounding. And your grounding is your understanding of how life works. It's your understanding of how human beings work. It's your understanding of how decisions work. It's your understanding of what's behind human performance. It's your understanding of what's behind human functioning. And as your grounding as a coach deepens, the impact you'll have as a coach deepens with it. And however deep your grounding or shallow you feel your grounding is, I promise you by the end of this program, your grounding in how human beings work is going to be deeper than 99% of the people that you're going to meet and work with. And the more you look in this direction, the more you're going to see. So I want to finish this unit with an experiment, with something for you to go and do. And it's an experiment in listening. And I'm going to really encourage you to be deliberate about it, to do this on purpose and not just kind of do it in the back of your head as you're doing other things. I want you to find another human being. There's about 7 billion of them around. And I want you to sit down with them and listen to them. You can do it on the phone, you can do it face to face. But while you listen to them, I want you to pay attention to what's going on inside your head as you listen. And I don't want to say anything more about that, but when you've done the exercise, I want you to come back and we'll talk about it. So I've done this exercise with a few, I think it's still in the hundreds, not thousands of people. And pretty consistently, what people notice is just how much noise there is in their heads. Just how much thinking is going on all the time, even when they're trying to listen. Now, that's natural. That's normal. That's always going to be the case, whether we're conscious of all the thought and noise in head or not. There's always stuff going on in there. So the idea that you could somehow get to a place of listening, of pure Zen listening, where there is no noise and there is just the other person, you may have moments like that. I certainly, have moments like that. But on the whole, you're just going to have to be aware that while the noise comes and goes, while it gets louder and softer, you're still able to hear the other person. Now, you may have even noticed at a certain point the other person completely disappeared for you. You just lost them, right? And suddenly you're back and like, oh, what were they saying? Well, again, it's not that that's not going to happen, but if you know that that's just comes with the territory of having a mind, then you can be more cognizant of it. And the funny thing is, there's really nothing you need to do about it. Just knowing that we think, and that thinking sometimes distracts us from actually seeing and hearing what's going on outside our heads, is going to be hugely helpful to you as a coach, and it's going to be hugely helpful to your clients as they go about doing the work that they do. In the next module, I'm going to share with you what is actually probably the single most important skill for you to develop as a coach. And it's not even quite fair to call it a skill, because it's something that you already know how to do. You just probably don't always do it.